Hello, Motorado World fans, and welcome to another episode of Talking MotoGP. This time around, it's going to be myself, although I'm not alone. I have all of you in the land of YouTube and Facebook to join me as we talk MotoGP, everything there is to talk about MotoGP from the latest round that was held at Catalunya in Spain. Pretty much considered the home of MotoGP. It's just such an iconic venue. I was very, very fortunate enough to have gone there a couple of years ago, and what a beautiful place to go watch motorcycle racing. The atmosphere, the everything, you could just feel the history, you could feel everything. It's just one of those cathedrals of MotoGP. I know Assen is the cathedral of speed, but Catalunya is right up there as well. So unfortunately, my normal co-host Paul Scott will not be able to join us tonight. He's just snowed under with everything that he's got going on in his life at the moment. So sadly, he won't be joining us. But as I said, I've got all of you to help keep me company. So it's going to be myself and all of you having a great conversation, open conversation tonight. So I'm really going to be leaning on all your comments and questions and guidance in the comment section. So please get the questions in, answer any of the comments on the side that I don't get to. Let's just really make it an open conversation. I'm coming to you live from a hotel room in Alkmaar, Holland, because I'm away from the UK just on work duties. I'm in France this weekend in Bordeaux for a off-road and adventure festival with Zero Motorcycles. So yeah, if the the internet signal battles a little bit, it's because there's too many people watching funny things on the Wi-Fi here in the hotel room. Get straight to it. In pole position is Brian Ritchie. Good evening, everyone. The early bird gets the worm, the early cat, the mouse, the early dog, the early cat, and the early biker pole position. Harvey Lowe is in second position, and he's got a good question, which I'll put out there for all of us, and we can get answering that. Yvonne Pretorius makes the podium once again. Evening, Rob and Paul. Let's talk MotoGP. Sadly, no Paul tonight, but Yvonne, glad that you are joining us, and we'll keep you as entertained as we possibly can. David Callahan is right in the mix as well. Shanghai Rob, good evening, all from the shores of Riccione, next to Misano. Talking of early, I'm already here. So getting ready for Misano this weekend. Another beautiful, what a place to go watch motorcycle racing. Absolutely beautiful. Van Erasmus. Hello, Van Erasmus. I thought 30 minutes early would put me numero uno, but you were quite a long way out, because you were almost an hour out. But the pole position man, Brian Ritchie, beat you there. So let's see. Ghazi Mazhur has got a good question about Pecco Bagnaia. It's obviously a good talking point is Pecco Bagnaia, one of many talking points that we'll get onto this evening. Wayne Taylor, always great to have you, Wayne. Gary Granger, CP Buertz, Paolo Ciacchetti. Hi there, everyone. What's up with Ducati complaining that KTM are using illegal fuel injectors? The world of MotoGP it's coming. It has these like little spurts of a drama series, like the Days of Our Lives, and that could be very much one of them. I haven't heard or read much about that, to be honest. So Paolo, thank you for the comment, and if anyone has more information, jump in there and get on the bandwagon of that conversation. Sean van Rooyen, Marnie Duplessis, Daryl Holmes, Adam Sweeting, Olimoto. I've been to Catalunya as well. It's a nice track. Thank you, Olimoto, for always joining us. Sebastian Trump, Michael Maggott, Ziggy Zimmerman, James Thompson, Ashley Belden, Brenton Stradford, Nicole Briett, all the way from Cape Town. Hello, Nicole. Hope you're doing well. Brink Heinemann, Ivan Pilisic, Brett Lawson, JP Sweek. Do you really think Mark held back from beating Alex, as many people are saying it was a fixed result? Who knows? JP Sweek. JP, I don't think so. If you... it's giving me some problem that we might not be streaming to Facebook. So anyone in the land of Facebook, just let me know. Although I've got a lot of comments from Facebook, so it should be fine. Have been to Misano several times, and it's great with Riccione, Misano, Adriatico, and Tavullia close by, but it's such a shame that they don't let you walk around the full circuit, Olimoto. So yeah, let's jump straight into the conversation. As I said, let's keep this as open and honest as we possibly can. JP Sweek, I'm going to answer your question first here. Do you really think Mark held back from letting Alex beat him. I don't. I think Alex was the faster rider the whole weekend. To me, I mean, it's a good place to start because I was really going to go down the list of the Sunday results and just, pick apart each rider and manufacture in each performance. And Alex Marquez was on top of the pile. And for me, that was the best version of Alex Marquez I have ever seen. Pretty much the whole weekend, he kind of made that mistake. Well, he threw it away in the Super Pole race, didn't he? Unfortunately, otherwise it would have been the perfect weekend for him. But that is the best version of Alex Marquez I have ever seen. He was confident. He was just brilliant. Other than that mistake in the Super Pole race Sunday, Marc Marquez, no one had an answer to him, and that's why he won. I don't think it was a case of Marc holding back to let him win or anything. I do think Marc, was potentially in the position of, do I need to push to beat this guy? I can pretty much wrap it up this weekend at Misano. I think there was a lot more on the line for Marc to try and, push and potentially crash out of the race and a podium finish. He's got this fantastic record this year that he wants to keep going, and to wrap the championship up potentially as early as Misano is just madness to think. So JP, yeah, I don't think Marc was holding back. I think it was just the best performance I've ever seen from Alex Marquez. Let's have a see what some other comments are. Aren't you supposed to be playing football, James? James, I need to give you a call, my buddy. We need to have a catch up. And no, tomorrow night I should be playing football and Sunday, but as I said, I'm away for work. So now we're talking MotoGP. Forget about football. JP Sweck, I feel Alex was top Ducati talent this weekend. Marc had no reason to push beyond his comfort limits. JP, I couldn't agree with you more there. Brandon Hout, evening, Rob. After having bad luck and recovery from his hand injury, best way to bounce back. And Catalunya is a special place for Alex. Always been super fast there. 100% best of Alex Marquez. So, I mean, I think it was pretty much clear for everyone to see there how confident in that he was. There has been, the talk of in previous races where Alex has held back and not been able to put the pressure on his brother or didn't want to pass his brother and, being, scared in many ways of his brother to attack. I think, as Brandon said there, I think the place holds a lot of great memories for Alex Marquez. Confidence was high, again, recovering from whatever injuries and disappointments and lack of confidence that he's had on this run, this bad run that he's had of late. But he just came back and he showed, he showed a talent that we all kind of knew was there. But, as the race was going on, I was just kind of sitting there going, okay, well, when's Marc going to close this, or when, and which was a disservice to Alex Marquez, to be honest. He deserved everything. As Wayne Taylor says, yeah, Alex Pole lap was insane. He was just brilliant throughout the whole weekend, other than that little mistake, which is, this is MotoGP. This is the cruelty of MotoGP. A tiny little mistake, pushing just a fraction too hard, and down you go in the sprint race. So very impressed with Alex Marquez. Let's hope that this will be the foundation of him, regaining a little bit of form, a little bit of confidence. There's no better way to get confidence than destroying everyone, including your brother Marc Marquez in Catalunya. So let's see if he can back it up going into Misano. But I was very impressed, and everyone that watches the show, everyone that knows me, I've never been a massive advocate of Alex Marquez. He has certainly proved me wrong with many performances this year and where he is in the championship and. But this weekend, I was really blown away by Alex Marquez. And as the one comment said, he was the top Ducati. And to say that with the likes of Marc Marquez, Fabio Di Gianantonio, Morbidelli, and of course Pecco Bagnaia, who we'll talk about, that's a huge thing to say. David Callahan, this is a question that was also asked earlier with regards to Alex Marquez, and is he going to replace Pecco Bagnaia, if not next year, potentially the year after? And it's a question that I'm going to answer. I don't want to say confidently, because I know anything can happen and change in MotoGP these days. And looking at the performance that Pecco Bagnaia put in this weekend and the tension that's now building between him and Ducati, my quick answer to that is no. It'll definitely be Pecco and Marc Marquez definitely for next season. The season after, I can't see it unless Pecco comes out next year fighting and finding the form that took him to two world championships. I think Alex is in an environment where he is allowed to go and shine and thrive. To go to the factory Ducati team and again be alongside his brother and competing against his brother, I'm sure would be an honor. And anyone, all the riders want to be in Ducati red, but I think Alex has found his place. I think Alex is quite happy there. I think he's showing in his results, in his demeanor, in just the way he's presenting himself. I think that's the environment for a rider like Alex Marquez to shine. I think it will be a very similar situation of Enea Bastianini, who was thriving and showed the best version of himself at Gresini Ducati, and then moving into the factory team. And then I don't want to use the word overwhelmed when certain riders go into those high stakes situations, like being a full factory Ducati rider. But that's the only word that comes to mind is overwhelmed. But there's a lot of pressure that comes with that. Alex Marquez in the Gresini team, I know there's the money and the prestige of it all, but for a rider like Alex Marquez, results speak louder than any of that. And I think he's going to get better results in the environment that he's in than he is in the factory Ducati team alongside his brother. His brother is built and designed to be a factory rider. He can handle anything that's thrown at him. He's proven it. Those kind of personalities are built for that factory ride. The Jorge Lorenzo's, Rossi's, Marc Marquez's, those aliens, if you like. The Alex Marquez's and that, they need the environment to shine. And I think that has proven itself where Alex Marquez is in his career at the moment, and the Gresini team. And again, kudos to that Gresini team, because they're able to create this environment for so many riders to go and shine. If you look at the likes of Fermin Aldeguer this year, DJ Antonio won races there, Bastianini won races there. So yeah, I can't see Alex Marquez joining. It's my personal opinion. I wouldn't advise him to join the factory Ducati team. But then again, as I said, money talks. Money talks. So I know there was a question posed earlier as well. So I hope I've answered that. Let's get a couple of comments now regarding that as well. No, that's clickbait stuff. Tardozzi is Brandon Hout. Tardozzi and Gigi both said Furman is the future. Alex should stay in Gresini, but with the full factory support and latest spec bike. I like that. I like that option. The one problem I see Ducati having, talking about Fermin Aldeguer, they signed him early. He was promised a Pramac ride this year, which, obviously with everything going on with Jorge Martin and Pramac going to Yamaha, that never happened. He was kind of put into the Gresini team, which I think was, again, the perfect environment for him to go and be a MotoGP rider for the first year. He's thrived in that environment. But according to what I understand, was that he was promised a factory contract or a factory bike. He is contracted to Ducati. He was promised a factory bike for 2026. Now, Ducati have, from what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ollie, Brandon, Wayne Taylor, there's so many of you out there that can correct me if I'm wrong here. But VR46 team is done, as far as I know, Digi Antonio and Morbidelli, with Digi being the third factory rider outside of the factory team of Pecco Bagnaia and Marc Marquez. And then there's Alex Marquez and Fermin Aldeguer. So what happens in this situation? Do Ducati make another factory bike available, and then does it go to Fermin Aldeguer while Alex Marquez is doing all this performing? So it's an interesting dynamic that's got to unfold there within the Ducati camp, because it's a case of too many riders now putting their hands up and deserving of factory bikes, factory support. Certainly Alex Marquez, if he carries on like this and does end up finishing second or third in the World Championship, but second best Ducati, surely that means that the factory support should lean more towards his way. But But let's see how it goes. Olimoto, Ducati know that there is no point in promoting Alex. They'll be expecting Aldeguer to push on next season, and he will be the pick for 2027 if Pecco continues to struggle. Fully agree with you there, Olimoto. Robert Mackey, there's just not as much fun in the factory red. Grassini know how to celebrate and party and have fun. Exactly that environment that I'm talking about. And Robert Mackey has had the same opportunities that I've had to be involved in some way with that Grassini MotoGP team, through our good mate Richard, who runs the sponsorship deals and that through there. And being a guest or part of that Grassini team is just absolutely fabulous, because, as I said, I've been lucky enough to be a guest of the Red Bull factory KTM team and a couple of other teams, and it's brilliant. And you get the fun wine and dining and the prestige, but there's that certain this is suit and tie. There's that strictness to it, that factory to it. Whereas the Grassini, you just go in there and it's sweets on the table and it's crisp, and it's just more laid back, and it's just so much more inviting. And I think that's why and I can highly recommend it. I know it's a lot of money, especially coming from South Africa, but if you are looking to go to a MotoGP and do it properly with behind the scenes access and paddock pass and pit tour and proper hospitality, I cannot recommend Grassini Ducati highly enough. You will just be swept off your feet. You will be treated with just 5-star food, atmosphere, everything from the word go. You get a proper pit tour. You really do get taken care of. So yeah, I fully agree. It's that environment, and we've seen so many riders how they rely on that environment more so than the machinery and whatever. It's that environment that lets them go and be who they want to be. And like I said, there's riders that are built to be factory riders, and there's those riders that need that comforting environment. So there's no point for Alex Marquez to move on, as pretty much everyone is saying. Yeah, Peter Garmany, I don't even think Alex Marquez would want a new bike at this point, with not much development happening for next year. Again, it's a case of why try and fix when it's not broken. Would they carry the GP24 over for all the other riders next year, or move them to the GP25? Alex van der Berg. It's a very good question, and getting into the Pecco Bagnaia conversation of Gigi Dall'Igna kind of made the biggest statement he has so far this year regarding, it was pretty much do I call it a stab, a dig at Pecco Bagnaia? He pretty much came out and said there's not a massive difference between the 25 and the 24. There's certainly not enough to justify this dip in form that Pecco Bagnaia is suffering from. We know there certainly was something that was different that changed the character of the bike in some ways. Digi Antonio has suffered with it, and he seems to have turned the corner in some ways. Some tracks he's found a bit of form, and others he still battles with a bit. Mark kind of identified the problem pretty early on and went, that doesn't feel quite right. I'm going to go GP24 route with this GP24.9 or whatever. So I honestly don't know what the answer is there. The GP24s will then be 2 years old, and it's not a case that Ducati build brand new bikes every year. Those chassis, those everythings will be 2 years old. And in a world that's so demanding as MotoGP, how do those other working components, the engines obviously get refreshed, as we know, and you're limited with your engine through the year. But it's the other moving parts, the swing arms, the chassis, the suspension, and all those. How do they fare after 2 years of brutality thrown at them? So it's a very good question, Alex, and one that I can only answer by Ducati having to label it a GP25 or something, because surely they can't go into a season riding 2-year-old machines. Certainly on paper maybe they could be, but to the public it would need to be seen as GP26 and GP25. In terms of maybe marketing, you can't be riding 2-year-old machines. So it's a big question. Does Alex Marquez, next year, does he get thrown this GP25 that's not as good as the 24, and then he goes, well, no, just give me the other bike rather, and so yeah, there's a lot for them to figure out there. Ducati have got this problem, but with Gigi Dell'Igna coming out with that comment, I was kind of blown back by that, going, okay, so that was really pointing the finger at Pecco Bagnaia, first of all, just saying, listen, there's not enough change to justify this this throwing your toys out the cot and saying the bike's not good enough and your dip in form. So yeah, I don't know. It's a very good one. A factory spec bike for 2026. Apparently, Ducati want all 6 to be GP26s next season, but VR46 only want 1. Thank you for that comment, Ollie Moto. Always great to see. Wayne Taylor, I can't see too much development for the next season. I can see all 6 bikes being basically the same glorified 25 Dukes. It is. It's something we're going to have to wait and see how that kind of plays itself out, because you definitely want the label of GP26 and the latest evolution out in the public. But, when riders climb on it and they don't have this GP24 underneath them doing all these fantastic things, how are they going to feel about that? And, we'll talk about KTM just now, and Honda and Yamaha, with them, developing and getting better, as Wayne says. And I know there's not much point of huge development for next year with a big change in 2027. So there's a lot to contemplate there for Ducati and all the manufacturers, really. So it's crazy to see. Can they go back to the 24 Ducati in 26, which is believed to be a better bike? CP Butts. I don't know. I mean, the 24 bikes are available, but I'm sure they have a sell-by date. And as I said, I don't think Ducati PR want 2024 Ducati's rolling around or riding around in 2026. So let's see. JP Swiek again. How the heck is Frankie even still a signed rider by any team based on his on-track antics and brain farts? I just don't understand how he has any appeal to teams based on these points mentioned. So JP, was one of my talking points from the weekend, was Frankie Morbidelli. Again, was in the headlines for the wrong reasons. Frankie Morbidelli taking out a rider, getting a 10-minute penalty for the first free practice session in Misano. Yeah, Frankie's he's just such a weird one, you want to love him, and I did after Silverstone. That performance he put in at Silverstone, and his debrief after the race there, that was the biggest connection to Frankie Morbidelli that I'd had. And even a couple of races after that, I really became a Frankie Morbidelli fan club member. But you just know there's going to be these moments, and they happen more often than not now, and they literally are brain farts. Myself and Paul have called them we call him Loskop, because he just does these weird and strange things. And I know there was rumors around the paddock that his status in the in the MotoGP circus is certainly dwindling because of this kind of thing. Obviously, he's a VR46 Academy member. It's the VR46 team. They respect him and they want him to work, but it's getting to the point now where it's like, exactly like you said, with so many talented riders coming up and so many options potentially going to be available for Ducati, in the likes of, if it doesn't work for Yamaha have got one more year with Fabio Quartararo, and then he'll be available. Pedro Acosta, if KTM find themselves in a tough situation again, he's available. There's Fermin Aldeguer, who wants a promotion, and the VR46 in many ways is a promotion. So there is. I wasn't surprised, but I was surprised when I saw Frankie Morbidelli was signed again, because I could have seen him being a rider, replaced because of all his antics and it's kind of the inconsistency he's bringing it into now. He went in this 2-3 race run kind of way. As I said, I became a fan, and his performances were there, and then he just goes in hiding and does these funny things, and you forget he's even there, and he just gets these stupid headlines and penalties. So it's a strange one. I think Frankie Morbidelli is just going to be one of those big head scratchers of MotoGP, purely because based on the talent, that season he had with Petronas Yamaha, finishing second, and not really factory Yamaha ride. He certainly had the opportunities to really do something in his MotoGP career, and in many ways he just hasn't lived up to expectation. And I think he'll be one of the first to have to put up his hands, and a lot of people, even fans, would have to put up their hands and say, the guy just hasn't lived up to the expectation, and these errors and these silly things that he does, just frustrate the hell out of MotoGP fans, and it must frustrate if you're a Frankie Morbidelli fan. So yeah, let's see. Because he's 6th in the standings and a very good friend of Rossi, who else should be on that bike? Well, Olimoto, I agree with you. Answering that question, he's got all these factors that just kind of still put him on that pedestal to be in that team. I do just think come 2027, if nothing really kicks off and these kind of incidents still happen, he'll definitely be one of the riders on the chopping block for this new generation that are coming through. No matter how close you are to Rossi, and that there's got to be a point where, right, do we keep a Frankie Morbidelli who's going to get us the odd result and great, but he's also going to get us this bad publicity and silliness? Do we go for him over potentially a Quartararo, a Bastianini, a Costa, Alonso David Alonso coming from Moto2, or what's his name, Manuel Gonzalez from Moto2? So yeah, I don't know. I as much as I want to, I'm actually in the Frankie fan club, Olimoto. I know you are, and that's why I try and choose my words wisely, because I know there's you and there, and I want to be a Frankie fan club member. I really do. But then I look at weekends like this and I go, it's just such a frustrating, thing to support the guy. So we'll have to wait and see. In some ways, I am glad that he's going to be on the grid next year. But whether it's Rossi or someone needs to just grab hold of him and say, listen, you just can't carry on like this. You just cannot carry on like this. Just these brain fart and brain faint moments have got to stop. End of story. Donovan James Moorman, how's it? Rob Portman, Donovan, how are you doing? How is our beautiful Trish? I know you update on Facebook and that quite often. Thoughts and prayers always with you guys and beautiful Trish. It's brilliant that my brother, and this was all on my brother with Motor Rider World and Alan John Fenter with Lacquer Racing and Red Star Raceway have come together and running a track day, to help raise funds for Trish Moorman and what she's battling with at the moment. So go check out. There is a GoFundMe page for her set up. So just go check out Donovan James Moorman's page or Trish Moorman's page, and you'll get all the information there. But a beautiful person, a beautiful soul that has supported me from day one, as she has just about every South African motorsport rider that's made it in the big leagues, like Brad and Darren and Richey, and that never, they came to every single meet and greet event. They supported. They've just been the backbone of support in motorcycle racing in South Africa. So Donovan, thank you so much for tuning in, and give Trish a big kiss and a hug from me. I wish I could be there to do it myself, but hopefully I'll get back to see her one day and healthy and that beautiful smile once again. Wayne Taylor, I think 2026 is a good chance for KTM with their future uncertainty about 27. They must throw everything at it next year and maybe catch Ducati napping. They need to get some wins soon. Frankie is level on points with DG. Olimoto, yeah, good. You make points like that, and then you go, well, there's DG, on the factory supported bike, the latest spec bike, and it's that same thing. I just don't find myself looking for Frankie in the results or anything. Even on race weekends when I go through the timesheets, I have my pinpoint kind of guys. Sorry, I went missing there for a second, didn't I? Yes, I did. But my signal is, the force is strong, so it should be fine. Don't know why that is. So let's keep going. I wouldn't mind seeing Frankie moving to World Superbike in 2027. Do it before he gets that bit older. Olimoto, I agree with that. Up until his injury, he was so promising, but since coming back to full fitness, concentrations levels just don't fit the sport. Robert, fully agree with you on that with regards to Frankie Morbidelli. The 3 KTM's looking really good. You froze for a moment, but you're back now. Olimoto, thanks. It's this dodgy Dutch internet service here. So let me just quickly go through the results. We've spoken about Alex Marquez, second. Marc Marquez, I don't, there's not much more to say. I think Marc's going through the motions at the moment. he's on track to become a 6-time MotoGP world champion and his 9th world title, which will tie VR46. But the Marc Marquez plan is playing out. I think this was his plan at the beginning. Yeah, I think it's going better than he had planned. I don't think he expected the likes of Pecco Bagnaia to fail the way that he has. Obviously, Jorge Martin with the injury and everything. I don't, and he'll probably answer differently because it's his brother, but I certainly don't think he thought Alex Marquez would be his closest championship rival and doing the things that he's doing. So yeah, I think with Marc Marquez, there's not much more to go. And I think it was a weekend of just getting the job done. He did it thanks to Alex Marquez in the sprint race. In the main race, as I said, I don't think it was a case that he didn't have the pace to match Alex Marquez. So he picked up second place, which was good enough. And he's got a match point now going into Misano. So job's done there for Marc Marquez. Third place. This is a great conversation. Great topic to start on because third and fourth place was Enea Bastianini and Pedro Acosta. Enea Bastianini's first podium for KTM, Tech 3 KTM. We'll start off wholly with KTM. A really good weekend. Really good weekend. Started on Friday with Brad Binder breaking the lap record, setting the new lap record, doing all kinds of things, looking so good on that bike, which was I really enjoyed watching Brad on that Friday. And he was fast from kind of the first outing. Brad's kind of the guy that takes his time, and we know his failings on Friday and we know his failings with qualifying, but he was just on it. And it was great to see Brad smiling. It was great to see Brad riding with confidence again. And what he said in the after Friday was the difference that he felt with the bike was the margin that he had to play with. There was no more the stubborn bike wanting to, this feeling in the stubborn bike wanting to resist and hesitate to do things in the corner and then have that feeling of crashing. There was more margin for Brad to push into corners and more margin to play without having that feeling of crashing. So well done to KTM, and I replied to a post that Mark Lloyd put out on his Facebook page that he had shared Motor Rider World's post on Brad Binder doing that. And I just said, we do have to give KTM a big pat on the back. As frustrating as it still can be and has been up until now, it really has been. Being a KTM fan has been a very frustrating thing. But to come back from everything that they've suffered this year with all that cloud of doom, the financial trouble, riders wanting to leave, Bastianini's gone, Acosta's gone, Brad, what's he doing? Maverick kind of, to pat him on the back was the solid foundation in many ways. He always was positive and he always kind of spoke positively and showed positive with pace and results, certainly early on in Qatar. Obviously coming back from the injury now, he's a bit out of the picture, but he was really standing by it while all this turmoil was going around them. And for KTM, I honestly, I'll put my hand up and say I didn't see it coming as good as it has the last couple of races. Catalunya, I know it's a track that sometimes lends itself more to some bikes and not to others, and low grip and but KTM have been fighting much better the last couple of rounds, and they were really up there. That battle between all three of them, as Pedro Acosta put it, it was a great Red Bull rookies battle. In the sprint race was fantastic to see. The podium for Bastianini on Sunday. I'll talk a little bit more about that. But to finish off with Brad Binder, I know the weekend didn't go the way he deserved and he had planned, but it was great to see him riding that bike with confidence again. And, it was riding a bike it wasn't that completely sideways. It was a little bit sideways, but that bike was just, bike and Brad were repositioning themselves and hitting the apexes more. And to put in that lap time and that performance on Friday was, as a Brad Binder fan and a KTM fan, brilliant, which was fantastic. And seeing it, that Binder smile again and that confidence, brilliant. So yeah, it didn't go the way. Technical problems, unfortunately, in qualifying. That's just a bad luck, this little hole that Brad's in at the moment. But the guy is just pulling himself out like one arm at a time, and his time will come soon. Misano is a track that he's gone at well in the past as well, so I think it could be a good circuit for him. But I just love the exercise of how good Brad was looking and that KTM were looking, and that together, and hearing him say they've got the margins and that the result wasn't there, but the bigger picture was there for Brad Binder and KTM. So brilliant. And Enea Bastianini is just impressing me so much. Before I get into that, Wayne Taylor, also Brad mentioned his mentality shift, just getting his head down and doing fast laps. Stop fanning about and pulling up every second lap. Again, credit needs to go to Brad. I think he has changed his philosophy, his mindset in many ways, it was needed. You couldn't carry on the way that it was going. The only way to fix things is to change things, and myself, Paul, and a lot of you have said that leading up the whole way through this year is, to get change, you need to change. And it was brilliant to see. We know they tried these new upgraded forks and these new front forks, and Brad was missing that on the bike that he used for qualifying, and those kind of things. But they found something. KTM have worked at it, and despite everything, they found it. Credit to Bastianini and Pedro Acosta and KTM again for putting all that behind them and saying, right, the season starts now, which was about 4 rounds ago, and they've managed to refocus themselves. And we can see it in the results. Bastianini is now a different rider from the start of the season, when you can't blame a rider in many ways of, I've signed for KTM and then KTM financial troubles. Well, why didn't you guys tell me about this before I signed for you? You promised me this and this and this. So Bastianini's mind, Pedro Acosta's mind, probably a lot of KTM minds were in other places. They were not on developing and getting better. They were on job security and what are we doing next and whatever. It's all come together. KTM the ship, and they are fully focused now, and you can see it in the results. So it is brilliant. There's a good comment here. Brett Lawson, apparently Pedro has been running upgraded front end shocks, and that's why he's always been ahead of Brad. This weekend Brad got the same and has shown his worth in big ways. This was one of the biggest key takings I took from Silverstone as well with the KTM project, because of the financial difficulties and everything that was going on. It was always going to be tough, but from the outside, we were just going, well, Maverick Vinales has got this chassis. Why doesn't Brad have it? These things don't just get made up, and things cost money. There's time involved. There's production time. There's materials and resources and all these kind of things. To just go make 8 sets of these fantastic new forks, it takes time, and it's a process, and you've got to test them in different environments. You'll see a lot of praise going towards Danny Pedrosa. The camera switched when Brad was fastest Friday. It switched to Danny Pedrosa in the pits, getting picked up and hugged and kissed, for all the hard work that he's doing in the background. So a lot of positivity towards KTM, and it showed this weekend in the results. And as Brett's kind of highlighting here, the more development, now that things are back on track, the more money, these kind of things are going to start happening. All the riders, they'll get both bikes fitted with new sets of forks or new shade or these new updates. It's like I said, KTM don't bring 8 updates of parts that work and then bolt them to 8 bikes. It's impossible, financially and everything. So these little things are going to come in, and as we see these, we're going to see the development of the bike and the riders, and we saw it this weekend, and it's fantastic to see. Bastianini, I'm a huge fan of Vinay Bastianini, the push like the bastard. I have been for a long time. He can be a frustrating watch sometimes as well, can be frustrating to support him because he can blow hot and cold. But when the guy rides a motorcycle like that, he's got to have one of the best. I love looking at pictures of Vinay Bastianini and watching him on TV, because he's got the best combination of brute, aggressive, bully riding style, but then there's this Jorge Lorenzo kind of beautiful flow to it. He's just a perfect combination of all of those things. He really just looks fantastic on a motorcycle, and the way he rode that bike this weekend past Pedro Acosta in that main race to get on the podium, that was a big statement. And certainly with Gunther Steiner taking over the Tech 3 team from next year, he must be just rubbing his hands together, knowing he's got Maverick Vinales and Vinay Bastianini, a combination like that, to come into MotoGP and take over a team with those 2 riders in it. I know for me, Maverick Vinales still has a lot to prove. It hasn't lived up to it. We've had this conversation. We can go on it for years, but he's certainly been a huge asset to that KTM project. And Gunther Steiner has certainly brought himself a proper project there. So it was amazing. It was amazing to see Vinay Bastianini and KTM perform the way they did. Pedro Acosta was on it again. Huge credit to him as well. He's managed to adjust, refocus, and getting the best out of it. He's been on the podium and racing at the sharp end of the field now more more often than not. So it's brilliant. Olimoto Bastianini has really found his feet with the bike, like Vignales had before his injury issues, and is showing his talent again. Good to see that it wasn't just a Ducati can do it on. So brilliant. As I said, this kind of what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. There's always been that saying, and I think that's more relevant than ever with the likes of Brad Binder, Enea Bastianini, Pedro Acosta. What they've been through this year so far, and in years gone past with Pedro Acosta and Brad Binder, will make them stronger MotoGP riders. What Enea Bastianini would have learned so far from him as a rider, him mentally, him as a person, him as a MotoGP rider, as a motorcycle talent. These are things you just put on your CV. These are just adding more skills to your CV, and I think this is just going to benefit an Bastianini. If he can carry on this momentum, he could be a serious challenger to the likes of Marc Marquez and those Ducatis. Once it really clicks, an Bastianini we could really see the real Enea Bastianini come out. And as I said, I think these kind of moments and everything they've been through are just going to make them better and stronger riders. And the beauty for Pedro Acosta is that he's doing this at such a young age still. He's learned so much at such a young age. He's been through the ups and the downs. He's been on a bad bike. He's been on a good bike. He's done all this at such a young age. So that guy's CV's already just mind blowing. So KTM. Well done, first of all, to KTM, because I don't think they get enough credit. It was easy to pick on them and point fingers at them and bully them and tell them they're not doing a good enough job and you're crap and Brad needs to leave. And in some ways, I suppose it was justified, because it's been a long time and it has been a very frustrating watch. But Akiayo has come in there. He's brought a calmness, a stability, and a patience to the project that is now paying off. So I must give KTM a big round of applause, and to all their riders. I think they deserve massive praise. And in terms of results, Bastianini and Acosta are getting them. I think it's a matter of time before Vignales and Brad, get the results that they deserve. Robert Mackey, the way Brad has gone in is exactly what Pecco needs to do. Read the back of his leathers before he puts them on. #go free. Van Erasmus, soon 4 bikes to share good info once Vinny is fit can only help. Exactly. Well, I think that's the beauty of it now, is also they've identified this direction, which has been frustrating for the likes of Brad. Certainly, I think it was a complete, I don't want to say complete opposite, but certainly a stray away from Brad's direction and how he rode the bike. So he's adapted to that, and they've all come together, and it seems to be, we're not hearing this, they're trying 16 million things on a race weekend, and Brad's on this one and this and this and this. It's certainly coming a lot more together now, and I think we're going to just see the results go from there. Andre Essex, Rob Portman, Bezzecchi might not have the pace of the Dukes, but it's great watching him trying to give it to Mark and Alex. Pity he was taken out over the weekend. Andre, yeah, I mean, I've had nothing but praise for Bezzecchi and Aprilia this season so far. A little bit off the pace this weekend at a track that they've been really good at with Aleix Espargaro in the past. I mean, Aleix winning in his last couple of years as an aged MotoGP rider showed how good the package was. So I was expecting more, but yeah, I'm very impressed with Bezzecchi, because again, Friday didn't start that well, but he just builds into it, and Aprilia trust him, and the confidence is there, the project's there. Martin is still. I think it's still too early to judge Martin. I think there's still a lot about himself and Aprilia that he's still trying to work out and identify. Last time out, well, before Catalunya, it was brilliant in Hungary. Got the 4th place celebrated with the team, but then you're going to go to tough weekends like this where you're going to get taken out or you're going to crash and you're not going to have the pace. And again, what doesn't kill you kills you, makes you stronger. Up until now, he's been on a Ducati his whole MotoGP career. It was easy. He's come back from that big injury, which was kudos to him, came and won a MotoGP World Championship. But now you're going to have more curveballs that you never had thrown at you before. And I think it's just going to make Jorge Martin a stronger rider. I think what happened to Bezzecchi this year as well, getting out of his comfort zone of the VR46 and being on a Ducati and that comfortable environment and thrown into this factory environment where, okay, Martin's out, you've got to be our main man. it's made him stronger. It's made him a stronger, better rider, to, adding more skills onto that CV. And brilliant to see. Didn't go their way this weekend, but I don't think that's the end of the story for Bezzecchi and Aprilia and Martin. I think that exercise is going to be better, get better and grow stronger and faster, become real challengers. On that note, for Aprilia, Ayagura, great to see him show a little bit of form again. The rookie started the season off so well. It's just gone terribly wrong since then. Injuries, crashes, but to come back at Catalunya, top Aprilia in seventh, brilliant performance there from Ayagura. It's great to see. It's because KTM has finally decided on a direction. Francois Retief, exactly. It's just a brilliant way and the best way of looking at it. Wayne Taylor, Pedro has been ahead of Brad because Pedro has just been better in every way, regardless of forks. And this comes from an obsessive Binder fan. Wayne, Brad Binder will tell you the exact same thing. Pedro has been the better rider, and Brad had to change something and adjust to get to that level. And we're seeing it now. We saw it this weekend. That was a big statement and a big step that Brad made. So, and that sprint race was there. How they were battling was brilliant. The three KTMs battling the way they did was absolutely fantastic. We can't forget, the talent that Brad was battling there. Enea Bastianini, Pedro Acosta, the next best thing, Pedro Acosta, and Bastianini, a proven MotoGP race winner. And Brad Binder was right in the mix. And this is still while he's adjusting and finding his feet with his new direction and his confidence. So, yeah, I've never been too worried about that. As I said, Brad will be the first one to put his hand up and say, Pedro was the fastest rider. I need to up my game. And we're seeing him do that now. I'm hoping for a consistent run for Brad and for KTM of their bikes performing and their riders performing, and we can start speaking positively like this more often than not. I think it'll be great. Mav with the right attitude is very dangerous. Wayne Taylor, couldn't agree with you more. We just need to see it more often. And this injury that he's got can be one of those niggly injuries that just never leaves a rider, so I hope he can fully recover from it. I still worry that he maybe came back too soon. I think a Paul Espargaro on the bike now maybe would have been a better choice. Let Maverick fully recover, because brutal race weekends like that on a shoulder injury is not going to help things. Alex Fullion, sprint, in my opinion, Brad was faster, got spun a bit because Acosta's ego punted him to the back of the KTM train. Brad had a good start, not so much in the main where he pushed too hard and fell, but awesome to see Brad confident and happy. So, Alex, the problem was, again, Brad was coming from 11th on the grid. In modern day MotoGP, that's huge to make. So, there were curveballs. Brad had the pace. Had Brad had a proper run in qualifying, which I think would have put him front row, minimum second row, top six, your race weekend, it's a different picture. It paints a different picture. Brad knows how to launch. He could have potentially whole shotted, certainly been in the mix, and then carried the pace throughout the whole sprint race, certainly, and the main race. So, yeah, coulda, woulda, shoulda. That's the frustrating thing. Looking at this past weekend, I'm sure Brad is sitting there and frustrated himself, because he knows there was podium and race winning pace. Alex Marquez was so good. It's hard to say, but certainly podium pace for Brad Binder, top KTM pace, I think. But it never happened. But the positives there of seeing the guy riding the bike with confidence again, smiling and happy with everything that's going on, adjusting that riding style, not letting the bike go loose and, not hitting the apexes and looking like he's fighting the bike. The bike looked a lot more keen to do what he wanted to do. It just looked a much better exercise. So, yeah, it was brilliant to see. Brink Heinemann, I'm excited to see what Toprak can do next year. He's just light years ahead of the rest of the superbike field, a magician on a very average BMW. Brink, every race weekend that goes 9 World Superbikes, Toprak just impresses me even more and just proves what a talent he is. Magny Core last year threw himself into a wall, was hospitalized. We kind of wondered when he was going to come back. This year he goes and destroys everyone, and what's it like? He's 8th triple of the season or something. He's it's just a fantastic exercise, and I'm the same. We've spoken about it plenty. I cannot wait to see him in MotoGP. Wesley 299, I'm still not sure about Brad doing the Rossi style leg out at corners. Didn't do that when he had better results a few years back. Wesley, I must be honest with you, it still does look a little bit alien to me, because I've always known Brad and Darren as riders that just never did that. So when he does do it, he still looks a bit uncomfortable. It doesn't look as natural as it does like with the Martins and the Costas and those riders that have done it from day one. But again, it's this adjustment journey that Brad's going on. If that's what Brad needs to do to go fast and feel confident and do things, credit to him. Where that's starting, this is one of the questions I'd love to ask him if we do get to chat to him one-on-one. Does it feel comfortable him doing it, or is he forcing himself to do that kind of thing? At this stage, I think it's, at the beginning, it was certainly Brad forcing himself to do it. Whether it's become a natural thing, I don't know yet, but it certainly seems to be working. So let's see. Bastianini is now the second fastest KTM, and may start beating Acosta regularly. Vinales was starting to look a threat before the injury. Brad also set the fastest lap, just a small mistake. He hit the white paint. So glad it wasn't the bike. Yeah, Alex van den Berg, there was everything. There were so many positives. I mean, I could just end it there. There were so many positives. As a Brad Binder and a KTM fan, I came out of this weekend just smiling and just, happier than ever to see them get what they deserve. And we all know the hard work that all the riders put in, but especially our Brad, everything that he's gone through, all the stupid comments and the stupid things and the everything that's gone on, it's got to come. It's got to come. The results got to come. Def been a shift in Brad's side of the garage, maybe finally Akiayo doing his thing, getting them to make changes. Absolutely. I think credit needs to go to Akiayo as well, because as patient as we've had to be, it looks like they certainly are turning things around. There's a topic in Facebook that Aeneas crew chief has left KTM with immediate effect. Is this true? Cosmic Surfer, I saw that. I didn't know it was immediate effect. I think it was the end of the season, as far as I understood. But he's a big piece in the back. I can never remember the guy's name. And he's one of the top crew chiefs in MotoGP. I can never remember his name, but anyway, he's fantastic. But it's that same old thing. Unfortunately, you can't take an Italian out of Italy, and if you do, you can't do it for a long time. And I think he's got to his point of, right, I need my Italy back, living in Austria and living the Austrian way, and it's not easy for them. So yeah, I don't know whether it's immediate effect. So it was Brian Ritchie with that comment, not Cosmic Surfer. So I don't know if it's immediate effect or at the end of the season, but that's going to be a big loss for KTM, and certainly Bastianini, because he was Bastianini's crew chief in the Cressini days, and they've got a great understanding. And I think that's genuinely what's helped this transition with Enea Bastianini getting the results that he is now. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see how that exercise plays out. Top Rack will need to endure a year of Michelin, then all hell will break loose for all. Cosmic Surfer, I like how you put that. I agree with you. I think I think there's going to be ups and downs next year. There's no doubt about it. Every rider that comes into MotoGP has to do it. Even the mighty Pedro Acosta came in last year and had ups and downs, and we've seen this year with Furman Aldeguer and Ayagura. MotoGP can be your best friend one week and your worst enemy the next week. So Toprak's going to go through all of that, but I'm still so excited to see it happen. Grant Evans, I wonder whether in the bigger environment of GP paddock, whether Brad gets exactly the same treatment as the Spaniards. It seems as if Acosta gets the best and newest equipment first. Brad, for me, has the same skill levels. I just think he is getting his head into the right space, and we will see him doing as well as his teammate. So Grant, I promise you, it looks like that from the outside, and it's easy to see that from the outside. And I think, I mean, I don't want to speak out of turn, but if I'm being honest, I do think that those kind of things sometimes happen in the MotoGP paddock. I know it happened at the national racing level that I raced at. Certain riders, and it's sometimes, I don't want to say warranted, but they were the top class. They got it not just because of nothing. They were the top guys, and the top guys maybe deserved the top things before anyone else got them. And a lot of, I know back when I was racing, tire manufacturers would use these top riders in race weekends to test these new race tires or whatever. So there were lots of times where I was like, oh, that's not fair. You got this tire and that. But at the end of the day, they gave a 4-time SA champion that tire, while I was a 0-time SA champion. So you can't complain. And I'm not saying that Acosta deserves it more than Brad, or Vinales deserves it more than Brad. I think at the beginning of the year, it was a rotational thing. So it was like, well, this is what we have available. As I said, with the financial troubles, it was right. Dust off the cobwebs, go into the archives, what chassis and engines and forks and that do we have lying around, because we have no money to buy and develop. And then it was, okay, right, this is what you've got this weekend, and if it works, let's rotate and rotate and rotate. I do think it gets to a point like this where, right, we've got these new forks, cool. We need to test them in race weekends. Cool, and it's a big step. Danny Pedrosa says it's a big step. It can really, be the next level. Cool. Who's the top performing KTM? Pedro Acosta is. What direction are we kind of going with this bike? Well, Pedro Acosta, Maverick Vinales. Okay, Vinales is not fit. Cool, bang them to Pedro. I'm not saying that's how it plays out, but I wouldn't begrudge them for doing that, as long as, right, seal of approval, it works. Let's say Acosta had them in Hungary. Seal of approval, it works, cool, go. Now you have available, get them on Brad's bike as soon as possible. And the biggest downside of this weekend, from what I can see on the outside, I don't know how true it was that, Brad only had the number one bike with those forks in. So, you need both bikes ideally set up identically, so that you've got a real chance that if a problem like Brad had, electrical problem on number one bike, you need to go on number two bike. It's not going to hamper you, and it's not going to hold you back, which in some ways that ruined Brad's weekend more than anything. So I don't want to say it's a KTM brown nosing Pedro Acosta more than Brad. I think it's a case of, right, you are where you are. Go, we can't hide from the fact that Pedro Acosta is the fastest KTM rider at the moment, and that's how it goes. For a brief example, in 2004, it was myself and Lance Isaacs raced for Ducati South Africa on the 999s. Stuart McLeod started the season off with us. The bike wasn't very competitive compared to the four-cylinder big 1000cc Japanese bikes. Stuart did one race at Kyalami, and then he jumped onto a Kawasaki. Myself and Lance kind of battled on. I became the top performing Ducati rider that season, and then later in the year, the rules got passed that because of the Ducati and the CC deficit and the horsepower deficit, we could run carbon wheels and one or two other little extras to try and help with the performance of the bike. And when the team wasn't flourishing in money, so we could buy a set of PST carbon wheels. And because I was the leading rider in the championship, Lance, in all reality, was the better rider than me, but because I was the leading rider, I had the option of them first. To be honest, I tried them for a race weekend. I preferred the other wheels, and then Lance got the carbon wheels, and off he went, and I still managed to beat him that season, thank goodness. But second half of the season, he certainly upped his performance. But that was purely on, right, we can have these upgrades. Who's where in the championship? There was Lance Isaacs, a former World Superbike rider, and Rob Portman, this, one at regional level and, decent, good, fast young rider. And I got the call purely because of where I was in the championship. So I think a lot of the time that is how it's gonna work. Wonder what F1 influence the new Tech 3 owner will bring. It's a good question, Mr. Cobus Rao. I'm sorry, I don't know. I've said that terribly. I know I have. I don't know. Sponsorship. I don't want too many changes. It's more about promoting the sport that is MotoGP and the ideas they have around it. I don't think there's much to change environment and nature-wise of that team because it's performing, but it's an interesting exercise. It's one that I haven't seen since I've been watching MotoGP or motorcycle racing. So let's see how it works out. Cosmic Surfer, Gunter has much knowledge, maybe a step up wish. So let's see. Sorry, did all the work on the softs. Just catching up with some comments there. Okay. So yeah, KTM, brilliant. Love it. Well done. Cool. Fabio Quartararo in 5th place. A good weekend for Yamaha. Well, I say good weekend for Yamaha. It was really just a good weekend for Fabio Quartararo, wasn't it? Good to bounce back the way that he did. Catalunya has always been a good circuit for him. So he was always going to go out there and perform, but it was good to see him bounce back after what was a frustrating weekend in Hungary, a weekend where I saw Fabio Quartararo the most frustrated I've seen him in a long time, and I'm sure there were very harsh words said in those Yamaha debriefs. There was still a bit of frustration there from Fabio Quartararo. You could see it on Friday when he came in and he kind of, in a typical Fabio, like, it was a polite, angry way that he said to his team, I didn't understand it when it was live, but I've seen the translation afterwards, him saying, when I tell you to go, we go. We don't, bullshit. We went too early and you effed me around and I lost my track position and that cost me my Friday. Anyway, he recovered the weekend, was so fast. And what I'll say, he carried the torch for Yamaha. There's no doubt about it. He's tested the V4 now for the first time. Was a little bit off the pace, but apparently track conditions weren't fantastic. There was a bit of rain and an end. But what I pulled the most from the Fabio exercise this weekend was, and this is really gonna not paint Pecco Bagnaia in a glorious picture, which kills me because I'm a huge Pecco Bagnaia fan. But it's the honest truth, and the same can be said for Bastianini, Brad, Acosta, Di Giannantonio, a couple of other riders. So here's Fabio Di Giannantonio on a bike that's not anywhere near the pace, doesn't work, as well as what he's doing on it. It's not a podium finishing motorcycle. He is making it a podium finishing motorcycle. The same way Brad has adjusted and found his form and made the KTM better. And Bastianini is adjusted and now showing the results. And all these kind of things. Di Giannantonio also, he was on the podium, and he's had some good rides. All these kind of factors just highlight how Pecco's getting it wrong, and Pecco can't adjust. And again, this kills me saying this because I'm a huge fan, and I've always regarded him and always will regard him as a true champion. But I saw a rider this weekend that down tools. I saw Pecco Bagnaia down tools from that Friday. Pecco Bagnaia is not a 21st place rider. Even if he's not feeling 100% on that bike, you can still override or get the best out of a bike. That Ducati, I don't care how bad Pecco Bagnaia is saying it, it's not a 21st place bike. So Pecco Bagnaia down tools this weekend, and that just, again, highlighted the friction now that he not only has with the bike, but with the team. And I said, Gigi Dall'Igna came out and said those comments. I don't know if any of you saw the interview that TNT had with Uccio from the VR46 team. And he came out and literally said, please, Pecco, Forza, you need to start riding this bike. I've looked at the data. You're not braking properly. You're not riding this bike the Pecco way. Pecco, please, Forza. It was so, for me, blatant to see Pecco Bagnaia down tools this weekend. He salvaged something with the result on Sunday, but that Friday and that Saturday, I was very disappointed with Pecco Bagnaia. And what made it even more evident was, well, there's a Fabio Quartararo on a bike that shouldn't be doing what it's doing, and he's riding it to get there. There's the KTM guys riding their bikes, just digging deep and forgetting about the shit and just overriding problems to get the bike there. Di Giannantonio has found a way to ride the bike. Firmin Aldeguer is new to MotoGP and he's finding a way to ride the bike. Alex Marquez has improved and found. And there's Pecco Bagnaia, the only rider on that grid at the moment that's not finding answers. And it's highlighting and showcasing his weakness, that he can't ride or he can't adjust to different situations. If it's not perfectly set up and it's, tailored to him in many ways, he can't find a way to kind of fix problems. So yeah, massive credit to Fabio Quartararo for what he did on that Yamaha. But Yeah, it's so hard. It was a hard watching that Pecco Bagnaia riding around in 21st on that Friday and in that qualifying. And he was literally riding around. There was still that camera angle where they showed him on track in qualifying and they moved to Dardotsi's face and he's just like shaking his head. And you got Pecco Bagnaia's wife behind him shaking her head as well. So the whole exercise is just a terrible one at the moment. Just a matter of mentality. Pecco is a broken man. Once he gets his confidence back, he will perform again. Brad, as an example, you can see Brad is definitely a different man after the break. Alex Fillion, I agree with that, but you're on the best bike. You're on a bike that's about to win the world championship halfway through the season, just about. You know what I mean? You're on a bike that Alex Marquez has beaten you week in, week out. You're being beaten by Hondas and Yamahas week in, week out, by Marinis on Hondas. And yeah, it's I could put up with I could see Pecco trying, and not getting it right. I could put up with that. But what I saw this weekend was a rider that's downing tools in a position that he's in a factory Ducati team on the best bike that everyone would give their left nut to have. Yeah, I don't want to say I lost respect for Pecco, but as a fan, I was very, very disappointed with Pecco Bagnaia this weekend. We're going to Misano now. If things don't turn around at Misano, then they're not going to turn around. I hate to tell you, then you must footstoots, let's call it, and let me go on to a Yamaha or something else, because it's got to be the final straw. Olimoto, I thought Pecco would struggle against Marc this season, but I expected him to be doing more like what Alex is. Pecco has just got worse and worse. His head is gone. Absolutely. Shane Foley, any news on Daz's future? I'll quickly touch upon that. No news yet, sadly. Both Ruche and Darren had tough weekends. Darren, I looked at it again, and every weekend he's this between 0.7 of a second and 1 second off the pace, which is not a lot in motorcycle race. It's not. I know in that paddock it's a lot. I know, but in reality it's not a lot. But he just cannot seem to find the answer to bring to bridge that gap. I don't know what it is. He just cannot find the answer. Unfortunately. And in terms of his future, the same as you guys. The last I heard was potentially, obviously, World Supersport and British Superbike sounded like a really good one. I haven't heard anything else, to be honest. I wish I had more information. I would love to know, because it is, I want to see him racing motorcycles. But again, I want to see him racing motorcycles competitively, not down in 21st place and 18th place. He doesn't belong there. So frustrating and energy sapping times for Darren and Riche in many ways. Riche is still going through the learning curve of that paddock. There'll be better days, no doubt about it. It's just a pity that Darren's got to this point where it could be time up in that paddock, and it's looking more and more like that. Wayne Taylor, think Pecco is missing Martin's data. He could relate to his data, but Mark's data is probably like a different language. And it's true. I was watching, I forget the guys. I see them on TikTok. I see their podcast, Australian guys, really good podcast. I like it. And they were interviewing Chris Vermeulen. And Chris Vermeulen said, in many ways, he was lucky that he never had to deal with a teammate like a Marc Marquez or a Lorenzo or anyone like that. And Chris Vermeulen in his own right was, a fantastic rider. But he just put himself in Pecco's shoes, and he just said, there's nothing worse. There's nothing worse than when you are riding the bike as hard as you can and on your limit, and there's a guy just doing more and going faster, and you're looking at the data and you just can't relate to that data. So exactly what you're saying, Wayne, it's a very valid point. I think there were times last year when Pecco was being outridden by Jorge Martin, and he could look at the data and relate and make the changes necessary in his riding and the bike, maybe, to go faster and be on Martin's level. Whereas now he just can't do it with Mar. He just can't. As you say, I don't think anyone can. It's like reading French or something for the first time and you can't speak the language. You can't translate it, and that's just put Pecco into the spiral, downward spiral of emotion and everything. You start questioning yourself, and it's just horrible. So very, very good point there, Wayne Taylor. It makes sense when you speak it out like we just did. I think it does make a lot of sense what you're saying. When they signed Marquez, I said then already, Pecco will never win another championship. But yeah, I mean, I could understand that argument, not win another championship. I can understand that. But like Olimoto said earlier, I knew Mark was going to beat Pecco, but I still thought Pecco would be challenging. I thought Pecco would still be his nearest challenger. To be nowhere, to be riding around in Catalunya in 21st place or whatever it was. Never in a million years did I think that. Never did I think we'd get to this point in the season, heading into Misano, and Pecco potentially won't be finishing top 3, top 4 in the championship come the end of the year. So winning another championship, I still think there was a championship potentially in there, but this not being competitive the way that he is and not adapting, I didn't see that coming. There's no doubt about it. Cosmic Surfer, here's a conundrum. I've looked at most champs' hands. Pecco is a lucky soft. What softy-handed lucky dude? Guitar hands. Okay, so he's not gripping that bike and wrestling it hard enough, is what you're saying. He is a beaten man. Johnny Martins, yeah, I agree with you. He is. He's if you look in the world of boxing, when a boxer is defeated, you can see it. You can, even in a match, you can see when a boxer is defeated, and Pecco Bagnaia has that look about him at the moment. So he's got to turn it around. He's just got to turn it around. Something happened with Daz after his injury at Keta, and he just didn't come back to the same form. Mario Stein, Darren's had to put up with a lot in that paddock. Injuries, controversy, the Jake Dixon thing at Silverstone in his Moto3 days. He has had to put up with a lot, and I think that kind of stuff has to hit you. It has to hit you. It takes its toll somewhere. It buries itself somewhere, and there's definitely a lack of confidence or something. There's something holding Darren back, because he is a better rider, and I know the results speak for themselves and the championship points, and I know all that. But I also know, and I have seen it, and a lot of people have seen it, is what Darren is capable of. And it's frustrating that, as I said, something's holding him back from that. So let's see. Don't talk about the box defeat, please, Alex. Alex, I won't, because I don't watch rugby. I know they lost to New Zealand because my father-in-law had a long lip when he came to watch my son's football on Saturday with me. And I asked him what was wrong, and he said, the box. So, yeah, but so I won't go there. Thanks for a great show. Got to go. We'll watch the rest tomorrow. Francois Retief, thank you so much for joining us. And yeah, do watch the rest. Not much longer now, but thank you for joining us and the comments. Really do appreciate it. Daz must ride the year out and see what happens. What happened? His smile is gone. It is. It's horrible to see this. Again, this deflated boxer. Darren is just deflated. I want to see more. Really hope Richet gets to stay in Moto3 next year. Kevin Free, I hope so, and I think he will. I think he's done enough. I know these 18th place finishes and stuff, on paper don't seem like good enough results. But again, when you're in that paddock, the teams pull apart the performances, and Richet's had some really good performances, and he presents himself well. He works well with the team. His communication is good. His translation is good. How he talks about the bike and translates the data and everything is good. So I think we will definitely see Richet Mudley on the grid next year. He definitely does deserve it. Daz downward spiral started when he had to get off the bike at the top speed due to losing his brakes when he hurt his hand. That was, I think, it was Sepang last year, wasn't it? Johnny Martins. As I said, there's been a lot of setbacks in Darren's career, and it's got to affect you. It's got to, we all have to deal with a lot of setbacks in life, and it affects us. In that paddock, you can't have these setbacks. You can't have these days, because this is what happens. You'll find yourself without a ride. So let's see. BSB had the most exciting and close racing again. It's like MotoGP was years back. Liberty should look to that for inspiration rather than F1. Olimoto. Agreed. There's a lot MotoGP can learn from BSB. There's no doubt about that. Robert Mackey, I'm in the paddock Thursday. If I see Daz, Richey, or Brad, I will give them all plenty positivity and talking them into better performances this weekend. Robert, please do that. Just tell them that Uncle Rob says hello and he loves them, and good luck to them and the whole of South Africa and everyone on this podcast. And in the world of talking MotoGP, just wishes them the best of luck and just enjoy it. I think a lot of riders need life coaching and not better bikes. Michelle Lewis, I fully agree with you. I think there's a lot of benefit to having that life coach, someone that will be there to be honest with you, but also to be there, to guide you and help you. If I look at the Jorge Martin incident with Aprilia this year, that was just bad man management. That was just people around him letting him make the wrong decisions, or being that devil on his shoulder, making him make the wrong decisions. But I think at that level, what these guys and girls, what these racers at that level have to deal with, yeah, I do. I fully agree with you, Michelle. In fact, I think all of us in life could use a life coach, because it's a hard place to be. It's a hard place to be. So, but I do agree with that comment. When will Yamaha factory eventually? What? When will Yamaha factory eventually can Alex Rins? You don't even know the guy is there in race weekends. Brett, I don't know. I'm amazed that there hasn't been more talk. I know he's got a contract. I know that. And it's probably got to a point where Yamaha are like, there's one more year, before 2027. Let's just keep the guy on the bike, save ourselves the pain and the finances to get rid of him. There's no rider they can replace him with now. I honestly, Manu Gonzalez was there. He's staying in Moto2. That there were options there to replace him, and they are now gone. So he's definitely going to be staying. And it is, unfortunately, and I mean this with all due respect, but his sell-by date has now arrived. Whether or not Yamaha are seeing worth in keeping him on in like a race weekend developer, whether they're plugging stuff on for him to develop on race weekends, I don't know. But the Alex Rins, it's a tough one, because that's a really good ride. As Fabio Quartararo proved, I know it's not the ultimate package yet, but there's still a bike there that you can extract something from to get onto the podium and be in the fight and be on the front row and stuff. So, and Alex Rins just can't do anything, shows you how brutal MotoGP is, and it just shows you how, again, talking about the life coaching kind of stuff, how much weight these riders carry. Because I spoke about like Anaya Bastianini, Pedro Acosta at the beginning of the year, dealing with everything going on about, looking elsewhere for rides and where's KTM going to be. Now that that's all gone, they're down and their focus is very much on racing, and the results are there. Miguel Oliveira has kind of been all over the place. His future's not in MotoGP, it looks like. Well, Jack Miller staying with Pramac, and Toprak's coming in, so Miguel's out. And then Miguel goes and puts in his best ride of the season so far, beating Jack Miller, second Yamaha type thing. And it just shows you, in many ways, it's that pressure off. He went into this race weekend with a clearer mindset. Cool, I know I'm not going to be here. Now I'm going to prove myself. It's that kind of coaching and management that these guys need at that level. So again, I think it's just another clear example of exactly what Michelle said. Life coaching can help. I'm available to be Brad's life coach, Mr. Quibus Rao. I hope I'm saying that right, Quibus, in YouTube. Well, there we go, Brad. If you need a life coach, Mr. Quibus is available. Andre said, Rob, thanks for a great show. Got to go and pack back to SA on rotation after 14 weeks. Andre, thank you so much for joining us. Good luck, safe travels. Wishing you the best. Keith Buerta, Keith. Now, there's a name I haven't seen and heard from in a long time. Keith, hope you're keeping well, my man. And another guy that did a lot behind the scenes in South African motorcycle racing, and I think moved stateside. I think still based stateside. now. So yeah, nice to hear from you, Keith. Hope you and the family are doing well, my bad. Dirk could see after Alex had big crashes, he never recovered. That's from Dirk Kotze. Johnny Martins, has anything been said about today's testing? Johnny Martins, I haven't even had a chance to look at it yet, so apologies for that. Ollie Motor, cheers, Rob, another good pod. You're thinking of heading to Brands Hatch next month at all? Oh, Ollie Motor, I have so many great ideas in life, and then life just goes, pulls that middle finger and kicks me in the head. So I'd love to. If I do, and I know I can make a BSB, I'll definitely give you a heads up, because we definitely need to revisit our standing on a hill and watching BSB and just talking bikes. It was absolutely fantastic. And ladies and gentlemen, pretty much brings it to the end of the discussion. Again, I can talk about the Luca Marini's finishing 8th on Honda. I think everything's been said, over the past couple of weeks from myself and Paul. I think the big talking points from this weekend we've discussed. The biggest disappointment for me being Pecco Bagnaia. I hope I see a bounce back from him at Bazzani. He has to. It's his backyard. There's got to be some kind of resurgence from Pecco. That defeatist attitude it was horrible to see. And KTM and Brad, well done, fantastic, brilliant. So let's see. I'm so excited for Mazzano this weekend. I'm not going to be able to watch it live. I'm busy playing with dirt bikes in France the whole weekend. But yeah, I'll definitely watch the racing after that. And then next week, Tuesday, we'll have Paul back, hopefully, and we can dive deep into talking about MotoGP Mazzano. So everybody, thank you so much for keeping me company this evening, and so many great comments and interaction. It's always brilliant. Yvonne Pretorius talks on World Superbike, Rob. Yvonne, World Superbikes is just one man at the moment. Top Rank Ras Gadioglu. That's all there is to say about World Superbikes. Yeah, we'll definitely do maybe a year roundup of World Superbikes and a nice show where we can just focus solely on World Superbikes. But yeah, I love World Superbikes, and I can't wait to see Top Rank Ras Gadioglu come in. That's all there pretty much is to say about World Superbikes at the moment. So, but yeah, again, thank you everyone for joining me and making the show so much easier with all the comments and all the support and everything. I really appreciate it. So enjoy the race weekend, wherever you're going to watch it from and see it from. Those that are lucky enough to go there, enjoy. Otherwise, if you're watching it on TV, enjoy that and make those notes, because I need you all. We need you all. Make those notes, and we can talk MotoGP Mazzano next week, Tuesday. Thank you so much. Have a great evening and chat soon. Goodbye.